Hello there, good morning, and a very warm welcome to our webinar today. This is all around Sage 50 P11D and the year end for 2025. My name's Duncan, I'm your host and presenter, and I am joined today by my colleagues Louise and Alice, who are both standing by in the background, ready and waiting to answer your questions. Let's now take a look at what we'll cover in the webinar. So I'm going to start with an introduction to the process for reporting expenses and benefits to HMRC and a run through of the P11D key dates and deadlines. We'll then move on to the practical side of things, explaining how to install your P11D update, which will be version 30, and transfer your data from version 29 if you were using P11D for the previous tax year. We're then going to take a look at entering benefit records. So this can be done directly in P11D for most benefit types, but it is also possible to import certain records from Sage 50 Payroll if you're also a payroll user. So we'll run through that process and we'll give you a demonstration on some of the most common benefit types. We're then going to finish with the year-end process. So we'll look at the steps to prepare for year-end and then to produce P11Ds and your employer declaration, the P11DB, and then how to submit that information online to HMRC. We'll then look at some of the further support available and we'll try and stick around to give you a chance to ask any of your final questions. So let's get straight on with our introduction. And first of all, I'd like to briefly cover what are benefits in kind or BIKs. So HMRC's definition are that benefits in kind are goods and services provided to an employee for free or at greatly reduced costs. Now, these benefits are often considered part of an employee's taxable income and could include such items as company cars, private medical insurance, or gym memberships. Now, employers have a duty to report the value of the benefits to HMRC and also to pay any Class 1A employer's national insurance liability that arises from certain benefits. And I have linked to the guidance on gov.uk for an overview of expenses and benefits for employers, and that goes into more detail about the different benefit types that need to be reported. So let's take a look at how you report expenses and benefits to HMRC. And currently there are two ways that you can do this. What we'll be covering in the demo today is the P11D process. And this is where you report your employees' expenses and benefits after the end of the tax year. And the way that you would do this is by submitting a form P11D for each employee who you provided taxable benefits or expenses. You will also need to do an employer declaration, a P11DB, and submit that to report the Class 1A national insurance that you owe on those benefits. You'll need to give your employee a copy of their P11D. So that's their record of what benefits were provided in the previous tax year. And the tax that's due on the benefits in kind is paid by the employee by an adjustment to their tax code by the cash equivalent value of their benefits. So effectively, they're paying that tax in arrears for the year that has just ended. So this is how it works currently, unless you have registered to voluntarily payroll your benefits. Now, we aren't going to cover payrolling in any great detail today. We are going to stick to P11D, which is what you'll use the Sage 50 P11D software for. But the other way of reporting expenses and benefits is doing it in real time during the tax year, following a process known as payrolling. So this is where you process the value of the taxable benefit through your payroll using a notional payment. So the employee doesn't actually receive any money, but the taxable amount of the benefit goes through payroll so that the tax due on that benefit amount is then deducted and reported to HMRC as part of your full payment submission. So tax is actually deducted and paid in real time under that method, and a P11D is not required for your employees or to be submitted to HMRC for any benefits that you payroll. But under the current voluntary payrolling arrangements, you do still need to do a P11DB after the end of the tax year, and that will report your Class 1A national insurance. Now, to payroll benefits, you must have registered with HMRC before the start of the tax year that you intend to payroll. So for the tax year 2025 to 26, you needed to have registered on or before the 5th of April of 2025. Now, if you're interested to know how payrolling benefits currently works, we did run a recent webinar, and we do have a recording of that available on our help center, which I've also linked to on the slide just there. Now, on the topic of payrolling, there has been some very recent news that the mandatory reporting of income tax and Class 1A national insurance for most benefits via payroll software, that's payrolling, has now been moved from April 2026 back to April 2027. So it was due to become mandatory in the next tax year, but we now have an extra year, giving employers, software developers and HMRC more time to prepare for that change. So from 2027, you won't be able to use P11D except for accommodation and employment-related loans. And as you're putting through benefits in your payroll, you will be required at that point to provide more data about each benefit type, which will give HMRC a breakdown of the benefit information in your FPS, similar to what you currently report annually on a P11D. Now, if you want to read the latest information that the government released on the 28th of April, I have linked to that on the slide just here. But for today's session, for the rest of the session, we are focusing on the P11D process. Payrolling or mandatory payrolling is something for the future. So back to P11D, I'd like to run through some of your key dates and deadlines. So I've put these across a timeline for you, and the first date on that timeline is the 31st of March, which was the date that we released the Sage 50 P11D update, version 30, which is what you will use to record and to submit the expenses and benefits for the tax year ending the 5th of April 2025. So 5th of April was the last day of the previous tax year, and on your P11D, you'll be reporting the expenses and benefits that were provided for the tax year ending on that date. Now, the next date on our timeline is a deadline. So the 6th of July is the main deadline. This is the date by which you must have submitted your P11Ds and P11DB to HMRC, and also issued a copy of the P11D to your employees. And then you have until the 22nd of July to make your payment of Class 1A employer national insurance if you pay electronically, or the payment deadline if you pay by check will be the 19th of July. So you have got a little bit of time before those deadlines, but of course you can submit your P11D just as soon as you're ready to. So what we're going to focus on for the rest of this webinar is the practical side of things. And I'm going to start with some information on installing the latest P11D update. So this is version 30. As I say, it was released at the end of March. And in order to prepare for a successful installation and a smooth transfer of your data from version 29, I'd just like to run you through a few preparation steps. So you'll complete this preparation in version 29 if you were previously using P11D, and you will need to make a note of your serial number and activation key, as these details will be required when you activate version 30. You'll need to make a note of your data location, as you'll be able to browse to that location to transfer your data to version 30. We recommend that you run Compact and Repair, which is a database tool that'll just check your data and compress it. And then we suggest that you take a backup of your P11D data, which could be used to restore in version 30 if you decide to transfer your data that way, or just as a backup in case there are any issues with upgrading your data. So for our first demo today, I'd like to run you through how to complete those steps. So I'm just going to bring the slides down. And we're going to start this demo in P11D version 29, which is what we used in the 2023 to 24 tax year. Now, the first step is to make a note of your serial number and activation key. And you can find this information if you log into version 29 click onto the Help menu at the top of the screen, and then click on About at the bottom of that menu. So that will then open up an About page, and that will have your serial number and activation key that you should make a note of, as you'll use those details to activate version 30. Our second step is to make a note of our data location. Couple of places you can find this. So one place is at the bottom of the screen just here, the bottom left corner. It'll show your data path. So in my example, it's actually the default data location. It's on my C drive, program data /sage/sage50 P11D. So I could write down that full path, as I would need to browse to that to transfer my data. Or another place you can find that path is if you go to the File menu and then click on to Change Database Location. That will actually show you your current data location in this box just here. And if you do it this way, quick tip is you could select the current location and then right-click and copy it. And then if you grab a notepad document or similar, you could then paste that in. So you've got a record of this, and you'll be able to paste this into the new version when you transfer your data. So that's a note of my data location. So I'm just going to cancel out of that screen to move on to the next step, which was to run compact and repair. So for this, you go to the File menu and select Compact and Repair, just down here. You'll see this message advising that it may take a minute or two, where it looks like nothing may be happening. It depends on your database size and where your data is located, but we're just going to click OK to that message. And actually for me, that's been pretty quick. It's been completed successfully, so I can just click OK to my confirmation message. And the final preparation step is to take a backup of your P11D data. So to do this, go to the File menu and select Backup. That takes you into the Backup wizard. You would click onto Next, and you would back up your data files. You would then click Next again, and then you can browse to a suitable location for your backup. So I'm actually going to browse to my desktop, and then in the file name, I'm just going to call this V29 P11D data. I'm going to click on to save, and then to complete the backup, I click Next and then Finish. So that file contains all of my P11D data. It could be used if I needed to restore it, if there's been some data corruption. Could also be used to transfer my data into the latest version, although we're going to do it a slightly different way, as you'll see in the next demo. So that is the preparation complete. I would then close down P11D, and I would then be ready to install the latest update. So quick recap of those preparation steps. Number one, make a note of your serial number and activation key. Find it in Help and then About. Number two, make a note of your data location. Could copy it into Notepad. Step three was to run compact and repair. And the final step there was to back up your data. Once you've completed that preparation, you're then ready to install the update. So if you haven't already done this, first of all, you will need to download the installation file, and you'll be able to find that from our Help Center. There's a direct link on the slide just there, or you can go to sage.co.uk/P11D support, and you'll be able to find it from there. You must be logged onto your PC as an administrator, which means you have permissions to install software. And then you would go ahead to install Sage 50 P11D version 30, and that will by default install into a new directory, which ensures that you still have access to your previous version, version 29, if you ever need to look back at historical records. So if you try to install over the top of an existing installation, you will be prevented, and the default folder will contain version 30, and that's where we would recommend you install to. So once you've completed the installation, you will then be able to activate your software using your serial number and activation key, and then if required you can transfer your data. So a quick look at some of those steps for you now. Now first of all, if you need to find the download, you can visit our P11D support site. That's sage.co.uk/P11D support. From here, go to the P11D year-end 2025 section. And then the first step that you see is to download and install version 30. So this will open up the guide that contains the download and also the detailed step-by-step instructions on how to install. So this is the download link just here. That would save into your downloads folder, and then you would run that file in order to begin the installation. Now, once the installation is complete, there will be a new shortcut on your desktop for version 30. And then to activate version 30, you would double click that new shortcut where you'll be prompted to enter your serial number and activation key. So pop your details in here and you'll be given two options. So the first one is to create brand new data if you're using the software for the first time. Or the other option is to upgrade existing data if you were using version 29. Now, if you prefer, you can restore your backup by creating new data first, but I'm going to choose the option to upgrade existing data. And when I move on to the next step, all you then need to do is to specify the location of that existing data to upgrade. Now, this is where the data path that I copied into Notepad will come in handy. So I could copy that path again. I could delete the information here, and I could paste my path into this screen. Alternatively, you could browse to your P11D MDB file if you've noted where it is. But when I click onto next, it tells me that it has enough information to proceed. I'm then going to click finish, and that's then going to prompt me to upgrade my data. So just work through this upgrade wizard. You would click onto next, and then you would need to wait while the data is being upgraded. So it could take a few moments if your data is quite big or if it's located across a network. You can then view your upgrade log should you wish to. I'm just going to go ahead and click finish, and it will then prompt me that the data needs to be recalculated. So we click OK to that message. Again, we see a progress bar. That completes successfully. And then we are prompted to log in to the latest version. So I would enter my password if I've set one up. I'd click into login. And then you can see at the top of the screen here, we are now on P11D version 30.0. So this is all of the existing data that's transferred across from version 29. We will have a closer look at that in a few moments' time. But let's just go back and recap the installation process before we move on to start talking about entering benefit records. So you've downloaded the installation file from our help center. We've logged onto the PC as an administrator and ran the file to install. So that's going to install into a new directory. Once you've installed, you open the program using the new shortcut for version 30. And that is when you're prompted to enter your serial number and activation key, which you'll have noted from version 29, or you've been given these details if you're using P11D for the first time. We selected the option to upgrade our existing data from version 29 so that we could browse to the data path that we noted. And then the next steps you're taken through are upgrading your data. And once that's upgraded, recalculating the figures. So that's it done. You're on the latest version and you're ready to enter and check the benefit details for the year ending 5th of April 2025. So that's what we're going to take a look at next, entering benefit details. And for anyone new to Sage 50 P11D, there are three types of records that you would need to record in your P11D software. So first of all, you will need at least one employer record, which contains employer details, such as the company name and your PAYE reference. For any employee who has received benefits during the tax year, you will need an employee record containing the employee details, so name, address, NI number, for example. And then for each type of benefit provided to an employee, you would need to create a benefit record, which will include things like what category it falls under and what dates that benefit was available, as well as the cash equivalent value of the benefits you're providing. Now, we are going to show you a couple of quick examples of creating benefit records in the demonstration. Obviously, there are a lot of different types of benefits, so we won't be able to go through every single category, but I have picked out some of the common ones to give you an idea of how you would create that information. But if you're a Sage 50 payroll user, there is another way to create records in Sage 50 P11D, and that's by importing information from your payroll. So within payroll, you have stored your employer details and employee details, but it is also possible to create company car records in Sage 50 payroll and process beneficial loans. So if you have any of those benefit types, so car records or beneficial loans set up, you can import that information into P11D, and you can also import your employer details and employee details so that for existing employees, any changes are updated, and for any new employees that you perhaps took on since last year, it's a quick way of setting up their employee record. So I'm going to show you how to do that as part of the next demo. So let's return to that now. So quick look around P11D to start with. So in terms of navigating the main options, you do have some stacked toolbars here on the left-hand side. So the first one is where you would come to create benefit records. You can see different types of benefits listed here, including miscellaneous benefits for those that don't have their own category. You've got the employee options where you can manually create employee records. You've got the employer options where you can create employer records, and it's also where we'll come to do the employer declaration. And we have an internet submission section, which we're going to use right at the end of the demo to submit our return to HMRC. So you can navigate this way and you would find the same options from the menu bar at the top of the screen. So we've got benefits, employee, employer, and internet submissions. Now in the main screen, you find an employee list. So these were existing employees that I had in version 29. And in the outline section is where you will see the employer details. So I just have the one employer set up for today's demo. It's my P11D demo company. And if you can't see this section, just click outline and that will show and hide it on the left-hand side. Now, once you've set up employee records, you can select them in the list. And if there are any benefits associated with them, and this is a company car that the employee had last year, you'll see the benefit details in this section at the bottom. So we'll come back to creating benefit records in a few moments' time. Now, this was the data that I used in version 29, but I also use Sage 50 Payroll, and I know that I have taken on at least one new employee since last year, and I have been recording company cars in payroll, so there's been a few car changes that I'll be able to import into P11D. So I just want to show you the import process, which we're going to do to sort of update this data with the latest information from payroll. So if I just switch to payroll on my screen, this is the payroll that I'm going to import. So employee 10 actually joined us in the 24 to 25 tax year. So you'll see their start date was back in April 24. So I need to set them up if they've received taxable benefits. So we're going to do that by importing them. And looking at employee 1, they have a company car, but they actually changed their car last tax year. So they last used the original car at the end of May 24. And you can see that they switched to a new car from the 1st of June, and I have already created that car record in Sage 50 Payroll. Now, if any of these employees had a change of address, the address details can also be imported and updated in P11D. But in order to do an import, I am going to need to know my payroll data path. So to make a note of this, just have a look at the bottom of the screen on the status bar here. And actually, this is the default data location as well. C program data /Sage, payroll, company one, pay data, payroll MDB. So I'm going to be able to browse to this path in order to import the latest information from payroll. Now, before you can import, you'll need to be logged out of that company in payroll. So I'm just going to close it down. And then to do the import, first of all, do make sure you've got an up-to-date backup of your P11D data. So I took one just now as part of my preparation. And then to do the import, I start at the File menu. I can come down to Data Import. I'm going to import Sage Payroll data. That's going to take me into the Import wizard. So we click Next to continue. And then we can either search for payroll databases by selecting a drive, or an easier way is to browse to the payroll data. So I'm going to click onto Browse. I can enter the path here, or I can click Browse again. And for me, it was Program Data, Sage, Payroll, Company 1, Pay Data, and it was the payroll.mdb file. So once we've selected that, we click onto Next, and you'll see the employer that we're about to import. And this is the existing employer that we already have set up in P11D. So I'll select them and click onto Next. And then it's going to show me the employees available in that payroll. And I can then choose which of these employees I want to import. Now, you only need to have an employee record set up for anyone that you've provided taxable benefits to. So you could choose specific employees just by holding down the Control key on your keyboard and clicking on the employee names, like so. And that would import information for those employees only. Or if you've got quite a small payroll database, I've just decided I'm going to clear the selection and import everyone. And then if there's anyone new, it will create them as new. And then for existing employees, it will update any of their details. Now, you might have seen there's a tick box to only import employees with benefits, but that refers to employees who have car records set up in payroll or beneficial loans. So if you have other benefit types, medical insurance, for example, you might still need the employee to be imported, and you would then create the benefit record in P11D. So I've got my selection cleared, which means everyone will be imported. I'm going to click onto Next, and it has detected that we already have this employer set up in our P11D database. So I'm going to click Yes. I want to update this employer. And it will go through the import process. And again, this can take some time, depending on the volume of data being imported. But that has completed quite quickly for me. I would click on to Finish. That has then shown me the import log. So it is showing me here that we've got employees updated. We have a new employee created. Got a new car created as well for one of our employees. And then a nice summary at the bottom. And then it will automatically recalculate the imported benefits, which has also completed successfully. So if you have multiple payroll databases, you could move on and do the same for other payrolls. But I'm just going to click No to that message. And if I select my employer in the outline screen, you'll see now that I do have a new record. Employee 10 has been created. So this information has been imported from payroll along with the employment start date, which was in the tax year just ended, and any kind of updates. So employee 1 had a new car, you might remember. So a new company car record has been created for that car. And again, if I double click that benefit record, it shows me the details, again, imported from payroll. So it's a good way to get a bit of a head start to save some time on creating those records. You can always create your employers and employees manually from the employee or the employer menus. Now, I did say that I wanted to show you how to create benefit records, and due to time constraints, I'm just going to create a couple of benefits for my new employee, but hopefully this will give you the idea of how you do this in P11D. So we start by selecting the employee that we need to assign a benefit to, and in my case, it's going to be employee number 10. What you then do is you select the benefit type for the record that you want to create. And I'm actually going to start with a company car. So for this employee, I didn't create the car record in payroll. I wanted to create it directly in P11D. So from this stacked menu on the left-hand side, I can choose the company car category, or I can go to benefits. I can choose company cars from here. What you would then need to do is to enter the relevant details. So anything in blue is mandatory. So I'm just going to quickly pop some details in for the car that I've provided. So it includes things like the car registration date, the date it was available to this employee. So it wasn't from the start of the tax year for this employee. We actually gave them this car on the 1st of June. And that will mean that it can do a calculation based on the days available in this tax year, as well as the benefit information. So with company cars, the cash equivalent is based on the type of fuel or power. So in my case, it's petrol, CO2 emissions, and the list price. So we're going to pop these details in. I'm just going to put the very basic details in. If you also need to record fuel benefit, if you provided private fuel, you can tick this box in the fuel details. And if you have any OPRA arrangements in place, optional remuneration arrangements, you would enter cash foregone values in the sections under employee costs. It's also where you can enter private use contributions, capital contributions, or amounts PAYE'd. Now, if you want to, you can create notes to save against this record. I'm just going to go ahead and save what I've entered so far. And what you can see there, if you look at the bottom of the screen, is that we now have the benefit assigned to the employee. And because they have a benefit now, I can switch to the P11D view for this employee. And you'll see that it's put it in the relevant part of the P11D. So it's section F for cars and fuel. It's done the calculation to work out the cash equivalent for this car based on its emissions and list price and the number of days available. And then this is the total kind of cash equivalent value for the company car. Now, as well as that company car, the employee also had some private medical insurance, which we're going to record as a benefit. So again, we've got the employee selected. From the stacked toolbar, we do have a category for medical insurance. This one's a lot simpler because we just need to know the kind of annual premium for the medical insurance policy. Now, the commencement date in this instance is the 1st of June. This is when they were first provided with the benefit. And because it's not a full tax year, that will do an adjustment to the cash equivalent value. It's still in force, so there's no cessation date for that policy. But the annual premium for the medical insurance in this example is £250. And this benefit is liable to employers Class 1A national insurance. So we've got the box ticked just here. So I don't have any employee contributions or amounts PAYE'd. We could add some notes if we want to for our reports. And when I click on to save, you can see it's worked out the cash equivalent for this item and the amount to go on the P11D. So It's also worked out the section of the P11D that it applies to. And looking at our P11D view, you can see it's now added that in to section I. Now, our Help Centre has information on other popular benefit types. As I say, you can find them in this benefit stack or from the benefits menu at the top of the screen. And keep in mind, we also have miscellaneous benefits for those that don't have their own category. And a quick tip, if you need to access our help site, if you click on this Sage icon here at the top, that will take you directly there. So that's our P11D support site, sage.co.uk/P11D support. And you'll be able to search for there, also find the contact details for our support team. So do check that out if you need to. Right, so we've got some benefit records entered. Let's just recap what we've been through in that section. So we've looked at some of the existing benefit records that were either in version 29 and transferred across. And we've imported information from Sage 50 Payroll. So that brought across a new employee and some company car changes. And then we finished by manually entering benefit records, which is what you'll be doing for most benefit types. So find the benefit type from the list, enter the required details, and then the software will sort out where that goes on the P11D. Now, once you've got all of the benefits recorded for the tax year ending 5th of April, you're then ready to move on to the year-end process. And that's what we're going to cover for the rest of this webinar. So I have broken this down into a 5-step process. We've got 3 preparation steps. So the key is to prepare well. So when you submit your P11D return from Sage 50 P11D, if any amendments are required to that return, you will need to do the amendments via the HMRC portal. So it's always a good idea to make sure everything was correct before you submit it to avoid having to go down that route. So as part of the preparation, first thing we recommend is to double check that you are on the correct version. That's version 30 for tax year 24-25. And then to check that you've entered all taxable benefits and expenses provided in the tax year. I'm going to show you some reports that you could run to see a summary of that information. And then the third preparation step, once you've checked all of that, is to take a backup of your P11D data. And then you can move on to producing the P11D and employer declaration and submitting to HMRC. So let's start with some preparation. I'm just going to bring these slides down once again. So I'm back into P11D. The first thing I'm going to do is a quick check of my version number. So it's found at the top of the screen here. It should be version 30.0. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, the opposite side, you should see that the tax year shows 2024 to 2025. So we are definitely on the right version with all the updated legislation for that tax year. Now, the second step is to check our benefit details. And before we go into this, we would recommend that you recalculate all of your benefits. So to do this, select the employer on the left-hand side that you're dealing with. And then if you go to the employer menu, come down to update employer calculations, and then click recalculate benefits. And that just ensures that all figures are up to date. Now, next up, it's a case of checking that you have entered the required information. So we can see in the employee list, employees that have benefit records have a Y in the benefits column, and you can view those benefit records individually, like so, just by double-clicking, viewing the information. Or you might find it useful to run reports to show this information. So we do have a whole suite of reports. If I click clear and swap to highlight everyone, you can go into your reports menu at the top of the screen. And then there will be a report or a set of reports for each benefit type. So for example, I know that I have employees with company car benefit. So I can run this report, which shows me the information that's been recorded for each company car record. I also have medical insurance. So there'll be a medical insurance benefit report. again, given the information for each employee. If you were looking for more of a summary, there are employer and management reports. So you can see things like breakdowns of Class 1A. That's the employer's national insurance. Or in the management section, got a summary report of the benefit types. So maybe look through these reports specifically at the benefits you're dealing with to see if there's a way of getting the information to help you check everything is entered correctly. And once you are happy that everything has been entered, we do recommend that you take an up-to-date backup. So as a reminder, from the File menu, find the backup option here. Work through the backup wizard, backing up your data files. And for this one, I'm going to call it P11D year end 2025. And I now have an up-to-date backup of that P11D data. So that's my preparation done. You can read more about those steps on the article that I've linked to, but we're now ready to produce our P11D reports and then submit that information to HMRC. So first of all, P11D is the form that you give to your employee. So each employee that received taxable expenses or benefits will get a P11D. It can either be printed or emailed from the P11D software. So you've got an option of doing one or both. And I'll also show you how you can create a PDF of the P11Ds to keep maybe for your own company records. Once you're happy with those, you would then complete your employer declaration. So this will involve ticking a box and stating the capacity in which it is signed, but it is also where, if required, you can enter any adjustments to your Class 1A liability. So an example of adjustments might be if you've got certain benefit types that you are voluntarily payrolling that have a Class 1A liability, you would be able to have an adjustment to show the Class 1A for those benefit types to go on your P11D alongside the ones that have been calculated from the benefit records. So I'll run through that process now. If I just bring those slides down. Starting with the P11Ds. So I've clicked onto swap so that everyone's highlighted. I can then go to the reports icon at the top of the screen. So P11Ds are employee reports. And if I scroll down, we've got the printable report. And we also have the email version. Now, starting with the printed one, I'm actually going to preview it so that you can see it on screen as well. That also gives us some other output options at the top. So what we can see here listed alphabetically by surname are the P11Ds for the individual employees. So this first one has a car record and some private medical insurance, a couple of cars for my next employee. And as you see, the list goes on, showing all of the P11Ds that we need to produce. So they can be printed directly onto plain paper. So all of the background and the boxes print for you as well. And if you wanted your own copy, maybe as a PDF, you can export the full report. I'm going to call it P11D 2025. Just going to drop that on my desktop for now. And that gives me a convenient copy of the P45s that I can then view on screen. So that's the printed version. Really simple to print that or to save your own copy. Now, if you want to email P11Ds, that is possible. It integrates with Microsoft Outlook, so it creates emails in the drafts folder with the P11D attached. The PDF of the P11D will be password protected, and it is the employee's national insurance number that will be the password for that document. So employees will need to know to open their P11D, they need to enter their NI number. Now, if you will be emailing them, you can select the email option. You do need to have an email address. saved in the employee record. But I'm just going to go straight to the email button at the top of the screen here, and it's then going to create the emails to send to my employees. And if I open Outlook, I can find in my drafts folder, I've got the email version of the P11D. And if I open one of these up, you'll see that the PDF is attached. So this is what you would send to your employee. And when they open it, they're going to need to put their NI number in. And that is what the P11D would look like to them. Now, we often get asked, is there an option of uploading the P11D to the Sage HR portal in the same way as payslips and P60s? There isn't a direct way of doing that, unfortunately. There's no integration between P11D and Sage HR. But if you do have the core HR module in Sage HR, that has a document storage feature. So it would rely on a bit of manual work exporting individual P11Ds, which then could be manually uploaded to Sage HR. But there's no direct integration. So you've got print or email are the two kind of supported options. Now, once you've checked over those P11Ds and you're happy with them, you've got a copy for your employee, but obviously you will need to do a submission to HMRC. And before you can do any submission, you will need to complete your employer declaration. So to do that, select the employer that you're dealing with, and then you can either go to the employer stacked toolbar on the left-hand side, and you'll find the employer's declaration just here, or you'll find the same option from employer at the top. It's the P11DB. So in this screen, you'll need to tick the box in the middle, confirming that the details of expenses, payments, and benefits are enclosed and they are correct and complete to the best of your knowledge. You would enter the capacity in which you're signing this declaration. So in my case, I'm going to put Managing Director. And then if you click the Adjustments tab, this will then give you a breakdown of your benefits liable to Class 1A and the employer's Class 1A payable by the July deadline. That's the 19th of July if you pay by cheque, or 22nd of July if you pay electronically. So what you're seeing in box A comes from the benefit records for benefits subject to Class 1A. And you can see a bit of a breakdown by the different types of benefit, different categories. But if adjustments are required, you've got calculated and kind of further additions and deductions that can be entered. So if there were any amounts that were PAYE'd, that results in a calculated addition because the employer Class 1A national insurance is still kind of due on that. Or if you had benefits that aren't recorded in P11D, perhaps they were payrolled, you've got certain benefit types that were payrolled, you can add a manual further addition for your Class 1A. So you put the taxable amount, the cash equivalent amount in that box there, and that will be added as an adjustment in box B. Now, I'm going to keep things simple. I don't have any adjustments to make. So I'm just going to simply save my employer's declaration as it is. You can print your own copy. There is a print option here at the bottom. Or if you close out of the declaration once you've saved it, you can go into your reports and into the employer reports. And then you've got the employer's declaration that you can generate like so. And if I just wanted this for my own records, again, I can save that as a PDF. So I'm dropping a copy of that on my desktop. That also confirms the amount of Class 1A national insurance. But this is just for information. You have to submit online these days, so you don't post this anywhere. Once you've done that declaration, you can then move on to the internet submission. So that's the next task in the stacked toolbar. If you've done this before, you have likely already saved your e-submission settings, but it's worth checking that they are still saved. And if you know that you've changed your password for your HMRC login, don't forget to update it here too. So these are the user ID and password that I'm going to use for my submissions, saved in the e-submission settings. And then to make the submission, I click on Submit P11D, P11DB. It recommends that you back up your data first, but I've already taken a backup, so I'm going to click No. It'll then show me the employers, and what we're looking for is can submit yes, P11DB yes. So once that's selected, click on to continue, and that then takes you to the submission itself. So we click continue, where you can check your company details. I'm going to click submit again, and we get a summary of which employees are included, as well as the Class 1A from the employer declaration. And to go ahead and make the submission, I'll click on to submit. And then that return for that employer is then sent to HMRC. So there it is, it's been successful. You can view the submission log from here, but also from the submission log icon on the left-hand side. So that's when I sent the P11D for this company. And then if you want to get a view of the information included in that submission, we do also have a P11D viewer. So this is the file that was used for the submission. It kind of gives you information on the different benefit types and what data was actually included in the submission. So that is available if you ever need it. You can export the XML, you can print or drop it into Excel. So that's my year-end complete. Let's just go ahead and recap those steps again. So P11D, we're creating for our employees. So we can print or email that, and this information will also be submitted to HMRC. The P11DB is the employer's declaration. So make sure you've checked your Class 1A NICs and, if required, entered any adjustments. You save that employer declaration, and then we've seen just how simple it is to submit it. You can only submit once from your P11D software. So if there are any corrections required after the event, that would be done via HMRC's online portal. Hopefully you won't get any of these, but one common submission error is error code 1046, which is an authentication failure. This is almost always due to an incorrect user ID or password, or an incorrect PAYE reference, or tax district and reference. So those would be the first things to check if you are getting error 1046. So check your e-submission settings, check the employer record to make sure the right PAYE reference is there, and you can get more guidance on that particular error following the link on your handout. If you do happen to get any other errors, we've got an index of error codes which should point you in the right direction in what you would need to do to resolve them. And just to finish up, I've already mentioned that if a correction is required, it must be submitted online, but you won't be able to submit corrections via your P11D software. So you can only make one full P11D submission per PAYE reference from Sage. If corrections are required, the approach you should take is to correct the records in P11D and then reprint the required reports. That would be the P11D for any affected employees and the P11DB, the employer declaration. And then you can head over to HMRC's PAYE online service to do an amendment to your submission. And we've got a bit more detail on the guidance there that we've included on the slide. So that has just about brought us to the end of the presentation. We do have a few minutes left, so we will continue answering your questions in the Q&A. And remember, if you want to keep any Q&A, you need to copy and paste them into another document. We'll send you a recording of this webinar as well, so you will be able to rewatch anything that you may have missed. But other support available includes some useful links that we've popped on your handout. So there's a link to our P11D support page, our Sage Advice blog, and some useful gov.uk links, including the latest information on payrolling or mandatory payrolling, which, just to remind you, has been pushed back to 2027. So our Help Centre is available via the Help Centre icon in your program or from the website on there, sage.co.uk/P11D support. If you need to contact our support team, you'll find all their details on the Help Centre. So just choose the topic you need help with and then follow the Get in Touch link. So in the last few minutes, as I say, we'll continue to answer those questions in the Q&A. If you'd like a copy of the handouts, don't forget to download them before you leave. And we will invite you to take our webinar survey at the point you leave the webinar. So if you have got a moment, if you wouldn't mind completing that survey to let us know what you thought. We read all of your comments and we do try to take them on board to improve our webinars moving forward. So I'm just going to disappear for a couple of minutes just to help Louise and Alice out with the questions. I will be back with you when we're ready to close this down. So I'll speak to you soon. Hi everyone, and thank you so much for your questions there. I think we're just getting out the final few answers to them. So you've been keeping the team busy, which is always good to see. As we are pretty much out of time, I'm going to wrap things up from this end. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us at the webinar today. I hope you found the session useful. We've tried to pack as much in as we could in that hour. And remember, there are further support links available in your handout. A reminder to complete the survey when you leave, if you wouldn't mind. It really is valuable to us and helps us improve these sessions. And look out for your follow-up email that we'll be sending later this afternoon. That will include the link to the recording of today's session, so you can catch up or rewatch anything that you may have missed. But on behalf of myself, Alice and Louise, I'd like to thank you all once again for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great bank holiday weekend. And we look forward to seeing you at some of our webinars in the future, but it's goodbye for now.